Alright, what do we got next? What do we got? Oh yeah. Okay. We're gonna watch uh Mandalore Gaming, The Chronicles of Riddick Escape from Butcher Bay review. Because we watched the Riddick Assault on Dark Athena review. So we're gonna watch this one. I know we're watching them out of order, but whatever. I'm disorganized as fuck. You know this. You guys know this. Uh you guys ready for this? You guys ready for this? I think this is the one I played, but I'm not sure. Like, I know I played one of them, but it wasn't exactly what you'd call a hmm a legal copy of the game, maybe. Maybe possibly, wink wink nudge nudge. So, I honestly can't remember.
You see anything?
Darkness. You afraid?
You afraid?
The dark is afraid of me.
Too fast, too Riddick.
I've mentioned the Riddick games a handful of times. I thought of them the most playing through Callisto Protocol since there was so much lost potential there for a space prison game. But playing The Thing Remastered had me thinking about it again. It's one of the truly great and unique movie licensed games. Only issue is, if you don't have it on console, holy shit is this thing a bear to get running. And there are
I think that's why I didn't...
There are 3 different versions of...
I think that's why I didn't actually play it. I think I tried it and it... Because, again, wink wink nudge nudge. A totally legal copy that I downloaded from a website somewhere back then. For the PC, and I tried to get it to run because I wanted to try playing the games, but I think I had problems getting it to run correctly on the PC. So I don't know. I don't know if there's like actual legal copies you can get on the PC that run correctly, or if I'm just gonna have to like hunt down the physical copies for Xbox or something in order to play them. But
Butcher's Bay, and each one has its own special quirks. So let's go through all that first. Original Xbox version, you need the console. It was also a game really pushing graphical fidelity, so it
the
might
green
not
more
run
like
the best. It also won't look as good as it could, but it is plug and play if you have all the materials. Which brings us to the PC version called the Developer's Cut, and my hell.
Please tell- oh my god, sorry for pausing again, but that joke just got stuck in my brain. I'm like, there has to be someone that modded the fucking fart sound in this game. Like, just at the most awkward moments. When he's, like, trying to be cool and in the dark and all that shit. Just random, like, fart noises. That would be so fucking hilarious. It just popped into my head. When I read that joke, it just popped into my head.
Except in this case, the Balrog was locked away for shitting its pants in class too much. GOG did re-release it without it.
Yeah, right.
But licenses expired at the time of the Maybe you bought it before that, or have your own copy, or found a version floating around. That's nice, but now comes the checklist of broken things. Like if you try to play
whenever we can hang out, we can
corner. The higher the resolution,
we can see if they got a copy.
I did look into ways you could do monitor upscaling and all these tricks to technically make it go up, but this is a problem at an engine level. Plus, I don't want my footage looking weird, but this is all at 1080. Still looks good. Okay, now does your movement look jittery and weird? Like Vin Diesel's being bitten by rats non-stop? Well, ironically, it's due to your mouse, and you need to set the refresh rate lower. I repeat, your mouse can fuck this game up if it's above 125. Fear is another game with this kind of thing. Movement now looks normal. You can check that out. Actually, you might be done. The aliasing can be rough, but you can enable it in the console, which you do by adding this line to the environment configuration folder. You Control-Alt-Tilde, add this line, hit enter, and you're good to go. As long as it doesn't crash when you do that. Also, you have to open the console, hit the up arrow, and hit enter.
I just feel like there's so much, for some reason, even when you get older and you're supposed to be mature and an adult, for some reason, if video games, when you have like just random ass fart sounds, it's still fucking hilarious, especially if it's like during serious scenes. I don't know. I I think it'll be a sad day if fart jokes like that don't make me want to laugh, don't make me want to do a little giggle, you know? I don't know. I think that'll be a sad day.
Every time you restart the game. You can also add an EAX sound if you have the tools for that, but when you get to this part, you might see things start to flicker. We're not done yet. This issue has been blamed on new
Unicorn
RTX
farting
GPUs,
rainbows.
AMD GPUs, but I've found forum posts from 2005 complaining about it, so it's always been around in some form. The problem is having your shaders set to max at 2.0++, the shaders for the future. The main difference is that instead of hardline stencil shadows, you get soft shadows. It's not a huge visual difference, but the game does run noticeably worse with it on. There is a patch in the PC Gaming Wiki, which I've been using for this. It's worth installing if you have crashing problems, but on my end, it didn't fix the night vision flickering. So you can put all of this under an umbrella of it depends. But if you do all that, you'll have a mostly stable, great looking and sounding game. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, this is definitely why I did not actually play this game.
They just transmitted a safe route through the minefield.
That minefield's offering better odds than you're gonna get taking me to Butcher Bay.
It's visually gritty, moody, and extremely atmospheric. Plus,
I remember playing like the first 10 minutes.
And a Half-Life 2 style commentary mode.
I
All
think.
great additions, but remember, there's a third
it just
option.
wouldn't
The
cooperate.
Butcher Bay remaster, made for the Xbox 360 in 2009, and included in Dark Athena. The sequel game just has this bundle with it, and it's on PC as well. Porting the game to an upgraded engine sounds
We love a
great
bundle. We
until
love
you
a
see what
combo.
they've done to it.
They just transmitted a safe route through the minefield.
That minefield's offering better odds than you're gonna get taking me to Butcher Bay.
There are technical improvements, like lip syncing was a huge one, but the look and feel of the game is completely changed. It's just drowning in color correction, bloom, and post-processing. Everything became washed out and over-brightened at the same time. For reference, the sequel takes place in a creepy spaceship, and now the prison looks like a creepy spaceship. And beyond the art shift, a lot of details were changed or lost, and I could notice a bunch right from the opening.
Get the fuck back to your cell, Jack. Hey, Riddick. Hey, Riddick. This is gonna eat you. You just landed right here.
Oh my...
Come talk to me.
I kind of miss these. The dramatic walk-ins to an area. These days they don't really do that, or they don't do it right, or interesting. But I remember during a time for a lot of video games, if they could get away with it, there'd be like an intro or an outro of a video game where it's like a dramatic walk. And you just be going by people and shit, and they'll be just randomly saying things to you. It was very dramatic and over the top, and I loved it.
This is your home. Get the fuck back to your cell, Jack. Hey,
Riddick, I'm Barber. Come talk to me after delousing, okay?
Oh, that sucked.
is your home.
The trade-offs aren't worth it to me. Like, gunplay is better,
How
but
do you
it's not
fuck that up?
FPS all the way through. Mechanics like melee combat were overhauled to be more reliable, but have less depth to them. Some sticking points like climbing are a lot more reliable this time around, which is a big plus. But then enemy detection AI feels a lot worse in areas, and on PC, it still has its own different set of quirks to get running. Some old bugs were fixed, some new ones showed up. Ultimately though, they took grungy prison assets and replaced some with those meant for a spaceship, and it just doesn't look cohesive. Yeah, it's a pain right now, I've put feelers out about that, but the second best option, I can't do it.
I said, you're in my cell.
Yeah, it is a ridiculous situation, but it is a game that deserves the spotlight. Really, the entire franchise is endlessly interesting to me.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Butcher Bay is a prequel, so you don't need to have seen any of the movies or the comics or anything else really, but I'll still lay down some groundwork. Riddick first appears in the movie Pitch Black, which is about a commercial spaceship crash landing on a planet, and Riddick is just one of the survivors.
Batman. Oh, that reminds me. I need to play the Batman games. That's also on my pile, my mountainous pile of backlog of video games I want to play. I want to stream the Batman games though. I need to play them, and I think I have almost or all of them on PC, so I should be able to play them all. But that is on my very humongous list, is to play the Batman games.
Should be Riddick, escaped convict, murderer.
That's a particularly good Shiraz. It's just a lovely drop. It's very expensive.
He had just broken out of a high-security prison, but was captured by Johns, a bounty hunter. Johns intends to take him right back to one, both for the money and because they have a history. In fact, in the start of Butcher Bay, it's Johns taking him there, and even at this point, they've known each other a while. This is because Riddick is basically a walking shank. In Vin Diesel terms, he's a Drow Gloomstalker Ranger. He has exceptional dark vision, but in normal light, he needs welding goggles to help tolerate it, because he got his eyes modified in a sunless prison.
You take up a doctor, and you pay him 20 menthol cools to do a surgical shine job on your eyeballs.
So he can see you sneaking up on you in the dark?
Exactly.
So by the time of the movie, he seems to have tossed out most of his humanity. He's physically
God,
modified
when
to
I first
roam the
watched that
abyss,
movie,
hunt
it
down
was so
others, and
fucking,
say
it was
2000s
amazing.
one-liners. He's extremely perceptive. Pitch Black explores the group needing him to be their eyes, but it's also about what he saw in them before the lights went out, and what he couldn't see. It's a genuinely great and self-contained movie, a nice creature feature very focused on its characters. In the sequel, an empire of death-worshipping space crusaders are about to wipe out all life in the universe. That is a hell of a jump to make. The story wasn't as strong and definitely lacked focus, but it introduced a really interesting sci-fi setting, and Riddick gets to run around in it.
I'll kill you with my teacup.
Yeah, I love it or hate it. I do love both the movies, but they both have different feels to them. They both have very different feels to them. So it can be a bit jarring if you go from one to two. So, but both of them have their strong points and both of them have their weak points. But I fucking enjoy both of them. Also, yeah, I hear that a lot, Yomi, whenever the Batman games are brought up. Like, that a lot of those people Batman, quote-unquote, fights are probably most likely 99.9% dead.
These movies can have what looks like a modern cop in a ball cap, and then a city called New Mecca, or Wolverine is trying to kill Riddick, or Linoge is back to haunt my
Not
nightmares with
Wolverine.
his 40k home reflection. It's Space Conan, and I love that. The downside is, they did start to make him the Chosen One, and there was some retconning that this game actually makes explanations for. The third movie did have some cool stuff as well, but also a lot of, let's do Pitch Black again. So when we get into the story, I'll talk about
the third
movies
one I
more,
didn't really
but
enjoy
also
that
I'd
much.
have a lot less to say on the plot, because otherwise it's a very straightforward game, and the parts I find the most interesting do need the movies for context. Also, the game came out a week before the Chronicles of Riddick movie, so beyond being a marketing tie-in game, it had threads to follow in there. Okay, so as for the plot,
Yeah, he didn't
Johns
kill him, he
drops
just
off
left
Riddick
him
at
to
Butcher
die.
Bay.
You know,
It's really that simple, but
There's a
I'll go
difference.
over a little more.
It ain't the fall that gets you.
The opening cutscene is actually right before Chronicles of Riddick starts.
Awkward.
He's in self-exile on a snow planet fighting a Section 8 Wampa. I won't go too much into Chronicles of Riddick here. But he's haunted by the voice of some kind of ancestor spirit, lamenting that he can use his gifts so well, but there's such a dark soul behind his eyes.
These are courtesy of a slam preacher. Got him a long time ago. Cost me 20 menthols.
Interesting how one chooses to remember the past.
So he's actively in denial of his Chosen One status, which I do support him on that.
You cannot escape your destiny.
I can escape anything.
Like Butcher Bay.
you are the chosen one.
Butcher Bay.
You are the too fast, too chosen. Oh.
Okay, and that's that. Johns finally has Riddick locked away in the pacifier Torment Throne, but at some point in the past, Johns crossed the warden of Butcher Bay, Hoxie. Now, we never learn exactly what happened between
Yeah, I
Hoxie and
do
Johns,
recommend
but
watching the
since
Reddit
Hoxie
movies.
looks like a cross between Shrek 2's Prince Charming and a South American
The third
dictator,
one was
it's a bit
eh.
petty.
Oh,
Either way, the opening establishes some
Didn't
cool
really
mechanics
hit that
you're
well.
for, like
But the
dialogue
first two,
options.
Today,
pretty
Johns,
solid
you get
movies.
fucked.
And stealth kills because Johns turns his back on Riddick. but he
Also,
won't be
I
grabbing
can't
his weapon.
remember. Yeah, I think I had a DVD or... Yeah, I think I had a DVD of, like, it was a set of the movies, of the first two movies. And I think there's also, like, an animation, but I could be remembering wrong. But I'm pretty sure there's an animation. Like a short little animation. Oh, God. Fuck. My body's fighting back. Oh, God. The demons are wanting out. Jesus. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure there was like an animation movie or something included in it, but I can't remember. I just remember, I think it was a part of like the DVD set.
DNA protection. New meat learns the hard way.
You're introduced to the melee system, hiding bodies, climbing, and a few helpful concepts like using health stations, and not all guns are DNA protected. All the way through, Vin Diesel guides you along your way.
Locked. Not a problem. I'll blast it off.
This is the most he narrates the whole game, but
Blasting
it's
off
because it wasn't always this way.
Team
Like,
Rocket.
he still has thoughts during key moments, and the tutorial being the most narrative heavy makes sense. But if you look into any Riddick project, you'll find out that Vin Diesel had a ton of input into the character. Arguably the best shot in Pitch Black was Vin Diesel's idea.
Crikey. I thought it was him. I thought it was Riddick.
For Butcher Bay, he wanted less lines than what they had written for him. So when he does speak to himself, it seems way more deliberate and reflective, like he's been snapped out of survival mode to think about something deeper. And then other times, it's more tutorial-style help.
Locked. Need to calm the hacks.
Wait, why did that? Hold on.
Sure, the
Hold on. Can we back it up again? Can we see it? Why does that...
survival mode to think about.
Okay, at this angle, this model of a person looks like a crash test dummy for some reason in my head. It full on looks like a crash test dummy. The face. Like, does anybody else get that? It just kind of looks like that to me.
Something deeper. And then other times, it's more tutorial-style help.
Locked. Need to calm the hacks into opening it.
Sure, the man could read a phone book and would probably be entertaining, but what's important is that the restriction made it so it's never grating. A silly one-liner is a treat you get every once in a while, instead of something you endure every 30 seconds.
I played the hand that was dealt. And then I cheated.
Beyond introducing all the game's concepts, it's good characterization. By the end, you kind of get what he's like as far as edgelords go. There's plenty of room left to add
Gun
more to
ammo
him,
screen looks
and then
like
he tapers
Halo.
lines off appropriately.
A red station takes away the hurt. leaves
Yeah,
the
once you have a
Which makes it
popular
fun that the
game or a
opening
game
is all a
series,
dream.
something's always
Or
going to be
at least the
copied
escape
or
attempt
look
part.
similar
You've
in
learned
other
how to
games.
play the game, Riddick has clear motivation, and the story's pacing is still intact. Like I said before, Riddick goes to prison.
So the famous Mr. Riddick.
Escape Butcher Bay. Outwit Hawks and... Exhibit?
Black Dead, piercing eyes. Yeah, that might have been it.
All we need now is Jaw Rule, and Riddick is for sure getting 25 to life. Anyways, let's talk about the look of the game. Butcher Bay, the actual prison, is a concrete nightmare. A triple max security facility. The planet is a desert wasteland, and the prison itself is built over an endless abyss. Inmates in the lower levels can participate in the prison's mining operations, which at least gives you something to do until you crack into a hole the local wildlife is living in. But honestly, most of the time, it's hard to tell you're living in scared straight Arrakis at all. The guards might get a frequent peek at the scenic hellscape, but you're mainly here to rot in a cell. No one escapes Butcher Bay, and the guards especially know this. Most of General Pop is a rotting, graffiti-covered zoo. An entire wing of it has basically been surrendered to a gang, but in reality, it's not going to go too far outside of how
Yeah,
Exhibit
this
wants
isn't
things run.
this
It's another
isn't
method of
the
control the
high
guards can
class
use without having
rich
to bother being there
person
themselves.
prison.
If they see violations, they might come down to beat someone down for fun, including you, but otherwise, max security is a place of pure apathy. What makes it interesting is that there are sci-fi elements, but this is a prison first and foremost. You're not held in by force fields, just concrete and metal. Visually, everything looks like it was built to last. All the machinery and computers are huge and bulky. Even something more fantastical like the power armor still looks clumsy and dated. Like they're not top-of-the-line machines, but for riot control, they'll get the job done. And they'll probably run forever if you have the parts
I
to
think I
repair them.
have one of the
Everything you
Fast
see
and
is meant to be
Furious
thrown
games.
here and endure the rot. Sure, it's a future space prison
Speaking of
colony,
those,
but
I think I
visually,
actually
it
own
looks
one
so
of those.
grounded. However, the deeper you go into the prison, the more things will start to change up. It goes from a rundown San Quentin to what could be a circle of hell. The mining operation, which Butcher Bay actually has an interest in running smoothly, still has a surface look of being a free-for-all, but if you look, there are cameras everywhere. It still looks like General Pop to the newcomers, but it is not the same structure. And along the way, you're starting to see more of the sci-fi technology this setting has. You're not sure how far it'll go.
I've got the Fast and Furious Crossroads for PS4. I think I got it. I think the reason I got it is because it was like so cheap, the physical copy. And I saw the, was it? I think it was like the Angry Joe show when they played it and they did a review about it. It was so fucking hilarious and bad. I was like, I need to get a physical copy of this cringe and it's so cheap. I'm like, why not? This is one of those games I would play because I know it's bad, and I would like just make fun of it the entire time. It's one of those games where you laugh at.
Until you hit triple max security near the end of the game, which I
haven't played it, by the way. This is for a future stream.
It's such a great mix of high tech and low life. Even at the end, it doesn't twist things too far off. You might see a laser, but the elaborate metal doors break down sometimes. There are nanotech healing stations, but a guard might have a toll for one. There can be enough cameras to make George Orwell uncomfortable, the guards still know a blind spot. There are so many extra details to making it feel lived in. There's such a pristine layer of stains and grime to everything. Like, within about 5 minutes of arrival, it's clear Riddick won't be content raiding the commissary and making Ziploc McFlurry.
You know what I noticed, like, during those shots of the prison? Compared to some of the modern games these days, why does that fucking prison look more alive and lived in than most places in games these days? How weird is that? That's just sad. The one Fast and Furious game on the Xbox 360. I gotta look up how many Fast and Furious games there are.
And this is
because
before
have any of them been good?
What brings it all together is the game's lighting system. Beyond just, looking sharp, seeing as Riddick's superpower is being able to see in the dark, light and shadow being a huge focus makes complete sense. He may have cool one-liners, but he's not immune to bullets. It's not much of a gunfight if you don't have one too.
Higher graphic means smaller budget for actual detail.
So
well, I mean, that's sort of understandable to a point.
There's some thief DNA here, and while sound isn't nearly as
to a
important,
point,
it's still present to a degree. For example, a stealth kill isn't a one-button option, you have two. A longer kill,
I think the main problem is they like to half-finish games to make that money.
The game does have enough climbing mechanics to where sound surfaces could have worked, but it's not a pure stealth game, and a lot of times, stealth is just an option. Still, I love how the game looks. The engine may be finicky, but it still feels like id Tech 3's cool cousin. The levels of darkness the game can get to can be extreme, but what's neat is how controllable it can be, and the fact that eyeshine isn't a perfect solution. Even before you have eyeshine, you can still take out lights to have an advantage. If anyone does come into the light, you already have the drop on them. You might think being able to see in the dark would only make this better, but remember, Riddick is also light sensitive. You can still prep an area to be stealthier, but when the shooting starts, you're disoriented by the muzzle flares
Oh my god, my eyeballs!
Best killing quietly in the dark. The fact your weapon spread isn't great kind of works for the character too. He can use guns, but he's not about guns. A firefight happening in the dark is things not going his way, so it looks disorienting. When it shifts back to melee combat, now you're in his world. And Vin Diesel never needs to say, oof, ow, my eyes, this is all informed through gameplay. It would have been easy to forgo the movies and make him a perfect predator in darkness, but instead it's still a trade-off he has weaknesses in. Besides, you could just use a flashlight.
Yeah, for video games these days, they need better, I don't know, what do you call it, management? People in charge making all these fucking bad decisions. Like, they need better people in charge at the tippity top of the industry, because the decisions over these past couple years have just been shit on top of shit, and then they cover it in fake gold and think they are the shit, and the delusion is just crazy. Arcade game of a Fast and Furious? I didn't know there was an arcade game.
It's on an even playing field.
But that does kind of make sense.
Also, I love the menu cube. I don't know why it's a cube, but I do miss when games would have absolutely wild menus like this.
Yeah, I miss good menus from games. I miss them.
Whatever the reason, it can be clunky.
They're all boring with like a random background wallpaper.
Watch the Japanese version of Cube. Oh my god. The game has great character models and animation.
Yeah, watch the OG
Cube.
Cube.
Can be wonky sometimes, but it's still crazy to think that this came out on the original Xbox. It has some fantastic graphical technology on display, but as for the audio, it's also great. There are lots of layered ambient effects, the weapons and sci-fi gizmos sound unique, and the actual sound propagation technology is good too.
You jerk-offs, get me out of here!
Out of there? After you apologize.
Oh my god, that fucking muzzle flash.
The music is good too, but I wish there were more combat tracks. There's a good amount of the sneaking and tension songs, and they have little flourishes of the action tracks in them.
I didn't think there were a whole lot of Fast and Furious games, but I had a feeling there was at least like a couple. Because they got so many fucking movies. You know they tried to cash in on the video game industry more than once.
There are absolutely some sections where it doesn't feel fitting. And like many movie licensed games, not being able to use any movie music is a real shame. Not having
yeah, the ragdoll physics in games, yeah, they are not the same anymore. They don't have that same feel, that same look. They really don't. It's sad. It's sad.
Any stinger with the horns is such a lost opportunity.
The way my eyes glazed over and thought that red bitch black and he was making a joke.
It does the job. Voice acting is a big standout. Everyone from the movie reprises their roles. There's excellent direction. The game is loaded with pro voice actors and Hollywood actors, which was still highly unusual for back then.
And I'm not even going to ask you how you handle those hacks.
The one sticking point is that sometimes Vin Diesel gets right up on the microphone.
Don't light a match.
But how do I know you're not a simple imposter? Can you stitch me or not?
You're Riddick, huh? I'm Jagger Valance. Perhaps you've heard of me.
I'm not a very good listener. Where's this spaceport?
My headcanon for this is that he learned mic technique while working on the Iron Giant, and it wouldn't be until later that he unlearned some things.
What you currently have in your mouth is art!
Fuck.
When it comes to living in and escaping prison, there are a few interesting systems at play. With the first you'll likely run into being melee combat. It can look janky,
oh no, Liam.
but it's an interesting control scheme. Basically, the direction of your movement will affect the direction of your swings, kind of like later Elder Scrolls games, I guess. The difference is every swing counts, not just power attacks, and you can also land combos. You do this by tapping a direction at the same time you hit an attack. Of course, getting the combo in means dodging or blocking until that window opens up, and that can be a small window. Plus, you're also keeping your eyes open
Iron
for
Giant's a real
counter,
one,
which you can do right before an enemy hits you. The timing for these is extremely precise, and you only know you can do it when Riddick opens his hands. This typically happens outside your line of sight, so from your perspective, Riddick's hands just vanish. Weirdly enough, this is way easier to do on enemies with a weapon, and especially a gun, because their swings are so much more telegraphed. So if you're not zoned out by gunfire, then getting in close is your best bet. You can find all kinds of melee weapons
that fucking
too, like
muzzle
knuckle
flash.
dusters, clubs, all kinds of shivs. But really, they all feel equally brutal. Melee combat is fast and meaty. Sometimes your counters are so fast that you're not even sure you did one until Paul Blart drops dead. The problems come from enemies clipping into you, or their AI acting weird, or things not lining up correctly, and the system itself can just be tricky. Being able to see Riddick's whole body and legs when you look down doesn't feel like it was put there just for immersion, but also because there's a kind of full body awareness to the combat. It does feel close to something like Condemned Criminal Origins, but that came out over a year later and was done better. I was never completely comfortable with it, which does make the fights tense, but when you deal with a damage sponge in something like the Exhibit boss fight, then it gets tedious.
I wish they would bring the Condemned games
together, the sheer brutality becomes pure
to
spectacle.
PC. Well, at least both of them, because I think, unless both of them have, I think only the first one is on PC
How the
though.
blood sprays around definitely makes it more visceral. Though strangely, like Condemned,
I can't remember if they ever actually finally put the second one on PC.
Because it's an electric dart gun. Though at the very least, you don't get it until a good ways into the game.
Wish
Plus,
they'd
while there are
remake
weapons-free
those,
areas,
or make a new one.
Monitored. And if you're seen holding any extracurricular items, they'll put you down. The game really plays with how much freedom you're allowed in any section, so weapons will come and go and you're never 100% sure how much power you've gained will stay. Still, at a baseline the melee is fun and unique, just tricky to master. Dark Athena's take is much easier, but for the Butcher Bay levels, it doesn't carry the same sense of tension. It feels like you auto-counter kill them when you whittle their health down, and while it looks a lot smoother, it doesn't have the same physical weight to it. It makes way more sense in its own campaign, just not the prison. Now, being in
Excuse the
prison,
fuck out of
Riddick can't
you?
always go on a murder spree, but he can sometimes. There are occasions where a straight-up fight is the only way forward, but sometimes there are subtler ways through. What keeps things interesting is how the game mixes the options up. Sure, at baseline you can be Murder Man or go through something sneaky beaky, but it's the context around that. Like when you're making your way out of max security, you could gun down everyone in sight. It'll be a hard fight, but it is a valid option. You could stick to the shadows and sneak your way through, or find a disguise. And doing this opens up a lot of little guard interactions.
You seen him?
I don't know.
I just heard what he looks like. Kind of like that guy.
Right. Okay.
You can buy weapons and armor to store your way to hunt down Exhibit. Then you could scope out a few possible ways to get into his apartment. And on the way, you could cut the power in areas and take down a few more guards.
I love how Riddick is literally, the disguise is literally covering everything but his fucking face. His bald ass head and his special uber super duper goggles. Stealth mode activated.
The level design isn't as open or interconnected as a proper immersive sim, but there are absolutely sections in that spirit that give you the choice in how to proceed. You can skip out on a lot, like when you get to double max.
Yeah, that is weird, Liam.
This is an area where you're trying to get in trouble, but in the right way. You could be caught with G-Smack, which the prisoners make by catching moths. There's something hallucinogenic in them that gets you nice and high. Or you can win some fights in the arena, which the guards and prisoners participate in. Once you're in the circle, there are no rules except you can't leave the circle, which means you can smuggle some weapons in. There's an entire little world of side quests you can do down here, like finding out who's snitching to the guards, killing rival gang members, poisoning someone to speed up a ransom process. Or you could ignore all of that
not the
and take your
green
luck on
gas.
craps. But you would not believe how bad the losing streaks can be here.
It's nothing. You lose, man.
It's all only optional, but worth engaging in. Sure, a weapon helps in the arena, but buying a vent tool lets you crawl around where you couldn't otherwise. Not to mention the side quests can be pretty ruthless. Like, you could be told to kill all members of a gang, but they might not be hostile to you. I mean, they are in Butcher Bay. They probably did something
Who
fucked
let the
up,
frog out of the pond?
right?
Oh my god, I've never heard that.
The are here, too. One little detail I like in these sections is that every NPC, guard or prisoner, has a name. They don't go, oh, these are the prisoners you're supposed to sympathize with, and these are the faceless guards. It gives humanity to both of them, but also kind of reinforces they're both the same kind of scum in different situations. They may be on different levels of the totem pole, but something went wrong in your life to end up here. Whether you're employed or an inmate, you're still in the prison.
Butchers is really falling apart. No one cares. Not Hoxie with the Barnes. Everyone's either addicts or gun crazy, or dead.
Voice actors are reused a lot, which does make that part trickier to get into. In Scholar's terms, this game is for John DiMaggio, what Quake 4 is for Steve Bloom.
Holy cow! Think you
Some of your relatives use that one
But
before.
when you
Well,
forget
Yomi,
all that and gun everything down,
you do come
it's
from
still
like
fun. They keep the HUD minimal the whole time
very-
as well. Your health will only display if you're wounded, and most guns have ammo counters right
very
on them.
British
It only displays your
family.
backup mags when you reload or when you find more ammo. Firearms are fun with
So
good
that kinda
sound
makes
effects and
sense.
great visual feedback on the enemies.
Sorta,
Though
maybe.
another strange reminder of id Tech 3 and Doom 3, the shotgun might as well be a melee weapon. The range and spread is that bad. It almost feels like it was designed entirely around a single level below the prison.
How do you fuck up a shotgun? This is honestly a legit question. Cause how do you fuck up a shotgun in a video game? Like, how do you not make it feel good to use? How do you fuck that up? That is, that would piss me off.
That's where you fight the swarms of mutants who either got irradiated through some kind of mining runoff, or maybe they couldn't handle the grits
I can
and
see it.
Black Bean
I can
specials
see it.
anymore. Anyways, while you can go loud, it does seem more fun to play more slowly and sneaky. Beyond the gameplay advantage stuff you find, the collectibles are worth seeking out. There's lots of bonus content to unlock about the game in the setting in the main menu, though I don't recommend reading a novelization through The Cube. But hey, they have a G4 documentary. That's another blast from the past.
What in the fuck?
I try to kick as much ass as I can with what little I have.
But maybe you don't care about this stupid setting.
Oh.
It's still worth it for the cigarette pack covers. These things are ahead of their
He looked
time.
so
They're looking for
innocent
more to
before
see
his
where the line
Fast
was
and
drawn.
Furious
I've never
days.
gotten all of them since some are like Halo skulls, but they're weird enough to be a good collectible. There's always something to find. That's one of the goblins from Starbreeze's other game, Enclave, which you saw bits of in I'll Never Escape It.
one of the great things about Enclave is that it just had a really great visual look to it.
I know a studio who agreed to that. Oh, it's you. That's right. Getting back on
I
track.
miss G4. Especially, God, I fucking miss X-Play. The OG X-Play, not whatever they tried to do and bring it back. It was like a couple of years ago or something. I don't know. They tried to do like a revamp of it to basically bring it back. But they did it so fucking wrong. Because it's like, if you watch the OG X-Play episodes, and then you compare it to whatever they did on the latest show they tried to do a couple years ago, it's like completely different. Like, it has none of the same feel, none of the same look, none of it. They basically brought like a couple of people back from the OG X-Play, and then they made it a generic show, a generic video game show, a generic nerd show. It was like you have this studio, you have these names, you have all this technology, you have all these supplies and shit, and you're backed up by a studio and all that bullcrap, and they just made YouTube videos that anybody with a fucking mic and a camera or a webcam could do, and it was not that much different, and it pissed me off, because I fucking loved X-Play. Loved that shit. That was my drug growing up. That was the show I had to watch. I could not miss it.
Pieces are here for an amazing game, and it is great, but the biggest issue is the polish. Sometimes the game will bug out and you can't pick up an item or gun properly. There are plenty of visual bugs, like models snapping into the wrong animation or whatever the fuck is happening there. But beyond the visual glitches, the AI is a big one. Like on the stealth side, how they detect you isn't very consistent. Sometimes they sniff you out from across the room, or if you're in the disguise section, suddenly they realize you're the guy they're looking for. It is one of those games where the stealth bullshit goes both ways. I could horribly mess up a drop takedown, but he doesn't notice me and I still get him. Or they can find a body you left and start shooting where you're at 5 seconds later. Even in combat, there were times an enemy forgot I existed and just wandered off into the hallways, or just stopped fighting me and stood there for some reason. When the systems work, they work, but this still happens often enough to be distracting. There are some things
I get like the OGs were getting older and stuff and didn't want to do the G4 and X-Play or something.
This is another area.
But again, like, I would rant about this all day because it just pisses me off. But it's like, if you're gonna try to revive something that was popular for a certain style and a certain way they did things, then trying to bring it back but only having the name and nothing else, basically. Like, what did they think was going to happen? Because they tried to bring back, it wasn't just X-Play, they tried to bring back G4 in general, but it didn't have the same style, it didn't have the same feel, it was just generic bullshit. It wasn't interesting to watch. It felt like generic PG-13 nerd shit when it was supposed to be rated R, out there, goofy as hell nerd shit. I don't know other way to describe it, like how they fucked it up.
Proved on, but also has its own different set of problems. All the pieces are here, but it feels like some needed more time in the oven. All that said, I think that just leaves the story, and as I said before, the tale of Dickie Rick's escape is extremely straightforward. Even without any movie knowledge, it's still a satisfying arc. But I do want to go into some of that, so if you don't want spoilers, go to here.
Give us the spoilers. Give us all the good shit.
In Riddick's attempt to escape max security,
Riddick can be such a little shit.
While down there, he meets Pope Joe,
just to be a little shit.
Apparently cut from the movie. Since Riddick was wounded in the fall, Joe will only heal him up if he brings him his voice box, which ends up being like a cross between a CIA numbers station and country radio. It says a lot of bizarre things, but mainly foreshadows.
Yeah, if you're able, whenever you're able to actually move, you gotta kidnap me. Gotta take me with you.
As Joe fixes his arm, a voice tells Riddick he's been blind for too long, and he gets his eye shine. Why the scene plays out this way is weird to me for a few reasons. For one, the game is pre-pitch black, but this is foreshadowing for Chronicles, which is fine planting even if it doesn't pay off here, but it's not the only instance of it. The second is that Riddick blames Pope Joe for doing something to his eyes. Like they're trying to have ambiguity to it, but it's clear that it just sort of happened. It feels like it would make more sense if Riddick was knocked out while he was doing this, and Joe could vaguely allude to how else he'll help him. It would make it way easier for him to write off the visions and voices as a medical fever dream. Besides, it's important to learn that the voices are not on your side. And truth be told, I've always hated the Threatcon being its a fury and power he has. It's been scrapped forever, but Pitch Black had a prequel comic called Slam City, and you see him straight up trade for the Eyeshine. The big difference is choice. In one, he throws a large part of his humanity away so he can thrive as some kind of abyss killer. His natural, most comfortable space will be in darkness. Instead, this would be like if I went in for a prostate exam and then entered the Avatar state.
The fuck?
He shot Gimps in a sewer and found his radio, unless the words about necromongers triggered his fury and ancestry or something. It's a really interesting part of his character that was overwritten to make him a chosen
Imagine just going to like a
being
regular doctor
have
checkup
much.
or something,
There's a similar
which
bit
can't be
later when
me. I'm
Zip
American.
catches you in
We don't do
Double
that
Max.
anymore.
And I don't know
Can't
what
afford
to
that
call
shit.
this, the Diesel Blast? No, that doesn't sound good.
And you just leave with like the fucking Avatar spirit powers. It's so fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I get some
And
back
then
pain
you
mostly
probably
because of this
shudder to death.
chair.
In the context of a video game, it feels like you've unlocked a new power or ability.
Like
just
my
you
chair
did with
has
the
lost
Eyeshine.
its
Instead,
its
this is
cushion,
never followed up
its
on, and not in the
comfortability.
movie either, unless you see the director's cut. There you see him do
So
the
the
exact
longer I
same
sit in
thing,
it,
unleashing fury and energy, and then it's never brought
the
up
more
again.
my spine
In general,
protests.
there's a lot more scenes of Furians being an overtly magical race, and I prefer Riddick being scary due to his experience. He never needed space magic with bioraptors.
Did not know who was fucking with.
Plus, he really seems at his best playing off of other characters, and especially a group. That's why this being a game works so well. There are people to play off of, and you get to play as Shivman in his natural habitat. Still, it is wild a game went this far to explain a retcon. Back then. Anyhow, part of what's great about Pitch Black is how much it reveals about everybody. Who is Riddick or Fry or Johns or Imam when they're really being tested? The lights go out, but a lot more is revealed. Cool stuff. Butcher Bay mainly gives insight into Riddick and John's relationship. John foils one of his escape attempts, Riddick thanks him with a shank, and it kind of goes along with the prisoner and guard dynamic where they're not really that different, at least at this point. On top of that, Johns wants his bounty.
Yeah, special effects, hold on, I gotta move the mic, hold on. Sorry if it's making noises. Special effects in movies back then, it's like CGI was only used if they had to. That was kind of like the thought process. Like if they couldn't do it due to special effects like any other way, CGI was a last resort. And yeah, it was because sometimes it didn't look the greatest depending on when the movie was made. But also, it was like a lot more expensive and also harder to do. Nowadays, anyone that watches a YouTube tutorial could learn how to do some fucking CGI now. So anybody with a phone and internet access can do some fucking CGI shit. Miss some good old special effects though.
Riddick wants out. But this still might be the closest thing to a friend Riddick might have had. It's a tense one if it is.
You dying on me, Johns?
Oh, I'm so sick of AI.
They hit you good.
I've had worse.
See, whenever... Sorry for pausing again. I gotta pause again. But you're gonna have me ranting this entire fucking video on different subjects. AI fucking is ruining so much shit. But now... Like, what's an example? Like, the AI in the Fear games, like the enemy AI, was so good. It was so great. Now when you talk about AI, you can't talk about it that way anymore, because AI is, like, trying to take over, and it's all bullshit. It's all half-cocked. Some of the times just full-on stealing, and it's just bullshit. Now I'm let's continue watching before I just full on rant again. I can't.
The day one of us kills the other.
The day is not over yet.
It also seems like he might not be tweaking on morphine yet. Eventually, John betrays Hoxie, saying he'll take Riddick to another slam, but it still seems kind of tongue-in-cheek, like they've been playing this cat-and-mouse game a while, or it's a borderline scam. Johns knows he can get out and he'll get a higher bounty each time. There's mutual respect here. By the time of Pitch Black, that's mainly evaporated. The reason for this is in a DVD extra for Pitch Black.
I would have never guessed he had such a soft spot in his little heart. Children in peril.
I don't know if they ever said what exactly he did, but he later cooked up another plan to feed a child to monsters, and that was the final straw. It's interesting to see glimpses of how things were before they got really bad, but Hoxie remains a mystery. You're not told much directly about him, but you still get a good sense of what he's about. Like, him being the prison warden makes him an automatic enemy, but when you see his wood floor penthouse on the top of the prison, that says everything. There are several points he could have
this is basically
Riddick, but his pride won't let
this
him
is basically
because he's too used to
evil
being God in this little world.
evil
He's not
101
just an
right here.
inmate,
Like,
he's a zoo animal, a trophy.
Nobody steals my property from my house, Johns.
He can lose guards all day, they're replaceable, it's the prestige of his facility. Though most of it has been actively crumbling under him, he never looked at it that closely to care. This edgelord in welding goggles isn't a real threat. He's annoying and a bit amusing. That only changes after Riddick sets off a bomb and lets swarms of aliens in. They do get contained, but at a massive cost to the mining operation.
As you do.
It's only at this point that Hoxie sends Riddick to the fabled Triple Max, and Johns is being blamed for bringing him here at all. He's done enough damage that this does feel like sabotage. At this point, you've already seen how dark, dirty, and awful things can get, so how foul is Triple Max?
Your mandatory 2 minutes of daily exercise begins now. This is your right as a guild prisoner, and your only right. A proposition to abolish law number 88432-337B is currently pending.
It's cryo sleep, but you're woken up 2 minutes a day to do exercise, and even that right is being challenged. This doesn't seem too bad at first, until it sinks in. Your entire life is waking up, stumbling around for about a minute, and then collapsing back down until you die. It's 2 minutes of the same thing forever without real sleep, it just feels like the moment passes immediately. They'll play bird sounds and sometimes dump another prisoner in there, but this is life now. It's a torture nexus they painted white and added some on-paper niceties to. It sucks! Triple Max is no good. You do find a fairly obvious flaw to get out of it, and maybe other prisoners did too, but that doesn't mean you're out yet. Of course, the cryo coffin pyramids, and it's full of modern power armor and robots. This entire section has bizarre, completely new enemies.
Attention. Unscheduled presence reported. Please investigate.
Oh shit! Oh my god. It hurt. That sneeze hurt.
At this point, you've gotten used to grime and prison drabness. Now you're in a bright, strangely colored high-tech lab. Everything is pristine and sterile. Riddick's completely out of his element, and as the player,
Thank you
are
guys.
too.
Thank you.
There are
Thank
barely
you.
any dark corners to hide in. Most of your enemies aren't humans anymore. And everything being bathed in artificial light is the exact opposite of where Riddick should be. There we go. It's a great shift from before, and you can stick it to Hoxie directly. You get to hijack a security mech and completely rip the upper levels of Butcher Bay apart. And all the while it just spews out first-time user tips and advertisements for the company's other products.
Analysis suggestion.
You're ruining the areas Hoxie actually cares about. One of his cryo trophies got loose. Weirdly, there's a similar villain in Riddick Dark Fury, except instead of cryo, her prisoners are in a different...
Okay, so there was like an animation movie type thing. Is this it? I wonder if this is the one I'm remembering, or if there was multiple. I'm wondering now. It's gonna bug me until I look at it later.
Animation. They experience time extremely slowly, another kind of nightmare. That one's
Sneeze
neat,
so hard you
there's
couldn't
a lot
stand
of
up for
off-model
30 minutes?
scenes,
Damn.
like they did Keith David dirty in some shots, and then it culminates in the Battle of Off.
Yeah, I remember sneezing so hard one time it literally took my breath away, and I had to like lay down for a minute to catch my breath.
This was a huge push back then. Moving on, the final battle isn't against Hawks directly, but his security droids. They have a nice parallel, but only in the PC version. There's a section where you fight two
It's crazy to think, because like, a lot of people make like shorts and TikToks and stuff making fun of the fact that if the older you get, the and when you sneeze, it's a hazard. But it's actually weird to think that a lot of people, when they sneeze, if you sneeze hard enough, or if you just generally sneeze, that at any point it could literally just like, I don't know, like take you out. Like you're literally just like throw out your back or something from sneezing. And that's just wild to think about. It's just wild.
Machines using absolutely the bare minimum. They're gangly, awkward limbs barely managing the massive guns on top of them. The ones here are obviously more advanced, but they also look like works of art. But even though they have better guns and can cloak, they're just as ineffective. Using them at all directly leads to Hoxie getting ripped out of his hiding spot. When it's just him alone, he's got no leverage.
Can you walk, Jones?
Yeah, I think so.
How's your eyesight?
Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. That's so dumb. That's so dumb, but I love it.
Butcher Bay escaped, more teasing about Riddick's destiny, but beyond the movie, maybe there will be a game where he
It's like he went from bald and goggles
that makes
to
perfect sense, right?
a head full of hair.
The next game is another prequel. Still, outside Lord of the Rings and a few others, this is one of the best movie licensed games. It does have some issues, but at the time of this video, the biggest one is getting it and getting it running. However, GOG recently
called
launched
Riddick
the
Dark
Dream
Fury. I
List,
wonder if that's the
where
one.
players can vote on what titles
That's
they
the one I'm
prioritize
remembering from the
restoring, and so
DVD
I'll link that in the
collection.
pinned comment. From what I understand, it was pulled originally due to some licenses expiring, but it does need some fixes as well. That about does it for this round, but come back soon for part 2. The Vin Diesel adventures aren't over yet.
So many Vin Diesel adventures. I wonder how many games he's actually been in.
It's a sudden stop at the bottom.
God.
In
Dark
RPGs,
Fury is
what
technically
class
the
do
second
I lean
movie. Yeah,
towards?
I think I
If you
remember
mean
that.
Tabletop, I'll play all kinds of classes, but I usually steer away from magic, which I think is leftover just trauma from D&D 3.5. It depends on the system, but for video games, I will play magic classes if the magic is fun and interesting, like Arcanum or Tyranny. Otherwise,
What's
I'm
next?
making
Oh, I don't know.
default human fighter,
I've got such a
and I
big
always
fucking
will.
list. I
Will I
honestly
cover the
can't
new
even remember
Factorial
all the
DLC?
videos I got coming
I'm already
up.
behind schedule, man. Not yet. Will there be a video on the Callisto Protocol's DLC ending? I have played through that, and it would be a shorter turnaround.
Oh god,
so
the Callisto
maybe if people
Protocol.
are
I tried
interested.
playing
I'm
that,
not
y'all.
sure if
I
people
really
still
did,
are.
but
Have I ever played a game that reflected my entire personality?
I think I
don't
only
think so, but the
played
most
like a
recent
couple
one where
hours
everything
of it,
clicked
and I
was
could
Northern
not.
Journey.
I
And
could
that's one I
not
wish I
get
could play
through
for
it.
the first time again. Now that I have an industry job, any thoughts on the current state?
Ugh.
Funny enough, nothing new really, just different insights into it. There's still talented people trying to make great things, but the landscape is kind of a nightmare. Hopefully, things will look
Yeah,
up.
there's like
But
stuff
beyond
I'm
that, I
adding,
guess
but
you
that's
can have
mostly
force
because
things
it's like
sometimes.
can
We put out Heart
most
of the
of the
Machine
stuff
last
I
week,
add
which is a 4X
myself is stuff
RPG from the creator of AI War Fleet Command.
I'm
Truth be told,
continuing to
I've worked on
watch
this game
from
and can't describe
other
it
people
concisely, so that's
that
how
I've
things are
reacted to
going there.
before. But I feel like every time, don't even, every time I end one of these streams, it's like I wake up the next day and there's at least a couple of new videos, and then by the time I next, I next stream, there's quite a few. 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 There's quite a few.